In February, Laurentian University in Sudbury made a stunning announcement. Due to what they described as unprecedented financial challenges, the school applied for creditor protection. Last week, the tangible results of that became clear as deep cuts to programs and staff were made public. With us now for more in Sudbury, Nadia Varelli, Professor of Political Science at Laurentian University. In North Bay, Gillian Phillips, Professor of Nipissing University and past President of the Ontario Confederation of University Faculty Associations. And here in the provincial capital, Sébastien Lalonde, Chair of the Canadian Federation of Students Ontario. Hi to everyone. It's very nice to meet you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Hi.
Before we start, in the interest of full disclosure, we just wanted to let you know Steve isn't doing this interview tonight because for the past 8 years, he's been the Chancellor of Laurentian University. The chancellorship is a ceremonial position. He presided over convocations and special events. So, given the current situation at Laurentian, he decided to step down as chancellor a week ago. Just thought you all should all know that, and just to put that on the public record, so to speak. So, as of last week, more than 100 faculty members were laid off, and more than 60 programs were eliminated. I wanted to get an idea from the three of you on your reactions to this. And as is our tradition, we usually start from the furthest to the closest. So, Nadia, I'll start with you.
Hi. Well, as you mentioned, on April 12, over 100 of us were laid off. And I believe it's 40 support staff were also laid off. And then we found out that 69 programs were canceled, 50 of which were undergrad, 11 grad programs. Of the programs, the undergrad programs, 24 were French language programs and the other were English language programs.
That is shocking. Gillian, what was your reaction to that news?
Well, devastating, of course. And I just have to say that all of this could have been avoided if Minister Romano and the Ford government had stepped in. And honestly, we are putting Minister Romano right at the center of responsibility for the program cuts, for the job losses, and for the devastation to the community of Sudbury. The failure of this government to step in and support Laurentian is really a failure to support education in the North.
And Minister Romano, Ross Romano is the Minister of Training, Colleges and Universities. He's also an MPP for Sault Ste. Marie. Sébastien, what is your reaction?
I think it was quite similar, right? Quite devastating, quite shocking. However, we are also aware that there was some financial issues happening at Laurentian University for months now. And so I very much echo the fact that it's the responsibility of the minister and the Ministry of Colleges and Universities to step in to make sure that our institutions are properly funded. And they failed in that and instead allowed this institution, a publicly funded institution, to depend on a process that is usually reserved for corporate entities, which is disgusting.
Well, because Minister Romano is not here to maybe defend his position, we have been hearing that this problem didn't just happen this year. It's something that's been in the making for a while. The university itself, Laurentian, cites debt, a tuition reduction and freeze, and of course the pandemic as partially to blame. Gillian, what does their situation mean for the way Ontario universities are funded moving forward?
Well, their situation is complex and it has a long-term cause and a short-term cause. The long-term cause is year after year for over a decade of underfunding of Ontario universities. And that has caused pushed many universities into seeking other forms of revenue and into financially precarious decision-making.
Like what?
But
can you give us an example of that?
Well, I think one of the issues that may come up later is the over-reliance on international students to make up the loss of revenue. But also we have the consequences for universities and for education. We have the lowest per student funding in Canada, in Ontario. We have the highest faculty to student ratio, so our classes are biggest. And we have a very profound and increasing over-reliance on contract faculty to do the teaching at universities. So over 50% of our courses in Ontario are taught by folks who are employed on low wage, temporary contracts, often with little benefits and no job security, and don't take an active or are not paid to take an active role in university governance or supported to do research. And all of this is just eroding the academic quality of all our institutions. But I do think the northern institutions are especially vulnerable to all of these factors. And for Laurentian, add to that the 10% tuition cut, the incredibly reckless funding model, which puts 60% brought in by the Ford government, which puts 60% of government funding at universities at risk, $3 billion, and then dump the COVID pandemic on top of that. And it's not surprising that a university would be suffering. However, I take the point of the other guest as well, that there is clearly some mismanagement at the university itself. However, we don't know what that was because the entire university finances have been cloaked in secrecy, and so has this whole creditor protection proceedings been cloaked in secrecy. So we don't have the answers to how they got there, right now.
Sebastian, I'll bring you in because I think that was your point that you made, right?
Yeah, exactly that, right? There's a lack of consultation with the community, a lack of discussion in terms of what can actually save students' degrees, assure that jobs are safe, and that there's a continuation of investment in northern education in Ontario as a whole. And unfortunately, that's not what we're seeing. And in fact, we're seeing a government which is essentially apathetic to these very severe cuts and what this is going to mean for the entire community, the student, staff, and the faculty.
Nadia, I want to bring you in. I don't want to put you on the spot because I don't want to shoulder it on you, but I'm curious to know, is there a why we think this is happening to Laurentian?
Why the major restructuring or why the CCAA?
Well, because from what Gillian was saying, it sounds as if the university was already being treated unfairly, so to speak.
Well, I think she raises good points. They're all points that we're facing as small universities. The 10% wage reduction, the tuition freeze, the reduced funding has led smaller universities in small towns to face financial challenges unforeseen. And this is years of underfunding. With regards to the CCAA process and the restructuring, I echo the other guests. Yes, has there been mismanagement at Laurentian? From my understanding, there has been. If anyone reads the court papers, where exactly is not entirely sure. Did Laurentian need to be structured? Of course it did. Any university faces restructuring from time to time. But we have a process in place, as does every university, to restructure academic programs. And the CCAA is not the way to restructure programs. And if you look at the list of programs that were cut, it's evident that there was no real consideration in the types of programs that we're offering or how these programs service the community, provided pathways to immigration, pathways to the job market. Rather, from my understanding or from what I'm surmising with the cuts, it came down to which programs were profitable. And public education, secondary education, or post-secondary education is not just about making money. It's about building networks for the community, of the community. It's about providing students with opportunities they wouldn't otherwise have. It's about working with the community.
I want to get more into that in a little bit, but because right now the provincial government hasn't stepped in, and Nadia, I wanted to get your sense, should the federal government step in?
The federal government, of course. I perfectly understand that education is a provincial jurisdiction. However, we all know that the federal government, through its federal transfer power, through transfer to social programs, does provide funding for education. And yes, and I know this is coming up later, but Laurentian has the unique mandate of triculturalism and bilingualism. These are core values of Canada. You know, our federal government is committed to bilingualism. Our federal government is committed to reconciliation. And this is what Laurentian is doing at the university. So I did expect, I did hope that they would step in. And yes, they need to step in.
In February, Alex Usher of Higher Education Strategies Association spoke to me about Laurentian's approach to international students. Let's watch the clip. Sheldon, please roll.
And I think the other thing to remember is they've chosen not to go after international students. Most universities in Ontario have brought in a lot of international students over the last 6-7 years. And, you know, I think if Laurentian had done the same at the same kind of rate as other institutions in the province, they'd have had an extra $8 million a year. You know, in 2018, 19, 2019, 20, and that would have caused this whole problem to go away. So are there enrollment problems? Yeah, but I think they're of Laurentian's own making. It's not something that's happening to them because of demographics.
I mean, right now, because of the pandemic, you know, having international students might be one of a series of strategies. But Sebastian, I just wanted to ask you, you know, how important is a program like that to a university like Laurentian?
Yeah, I have to be honest that this discussion oftentimes I think derails where the focus really should be. It's rather disingenuous to say that we need to depend on international students to support our post-secondary education system. So far in Ontario, about 20% of it is funded by international student differential fees, who are paying 2, 3, sometimes 4 times the amount of domestic students, and who also, by the way, during a pandemic, don't even have access to the basic Ontario health insurance plan and are forced into private insurance companies. This province has a long history of using international students as cash cows to support its post-secondary education system when the provincial government has the capacity and yet lack of will to see education as a public good and to fund it directly, because we know that it is better for society as a whole, that we know that $1 invested in post-secondary education comes back to $1.36 in the overall province. And so when talking about international students and the practices that we've already put our institutions in terms of having to poach those students, in terms of having to find corporate deals and get financing elsewhere from the provincial government, is an attack on our institutions' quality of education, but then also ethically, it's just not morally sound. And so to have this argument and to put the focus away from the provincial government's responsibility is a gross practice, and this differential fees for international students has to end.
Nadia mentioned this before about the tricultural mandate at Laurentian, and I think it is something that the school prides itself for. It offers English, French, and Indigenous programs. Sebastian, you know, French programs have been hit hard. What's at stake for Francophone students in the North?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I personally, so I'm Franco-Ontarian. It was my first language. And when I chose to go to post-secondary education, I went to a York University and did my program entirely in English. And that's because the programs that I was looking to do to complete my entire education in French isn't available, or is at least very, very stark in the province of Ontario. Laurentian University was one of the few places where you could get a fully Francophone post-secondary education. And yet, as we've seen, that and Indigenous studies and Indigenous language programs are the very first things to be cut when we're seeing financial cutbacks. And that is a direct attack on the Francophone community, on the Indigenous communities, and especially for such a tricultural, not only university, but a tricultural community in Sudbury.
I know Alex Usher, even when he was on the show in February, said there has been a lack of communication, but the president of Laurentian, President Robert Haché, released a statement. And I'm just going to read a little bit of the statement. And Gillian, I wanted to get your reaction. So he writes, "While we understand that the termination of the Laurentian Federation has left some students with questions regarding their academic path, solutions are being worked on. For example, Laurentian University will provide approximately 140 students registered in the Indigenous Studies program at the University of Sudbury with access to courses rooted in Indigenous perspectives already on offer, mostly through Laurentian's Faculty of Arts in a range of disciplines. As part of our commitment to honor and affirm our tricultural mandate, Laurentian is committed to an Indigenous Perspectives program among its academic offerings, in addition to its well-established Bachelor of Indigenous Social Work and Master of Indigenous Relations programs." First question, Gillian, what is the Laurentian Federation?
Well, the universities that are connected through these federation agreements with Laurentian have grown up through a kind of independent and in some case faith-based processes, and they have legal agreements and longstanding arrangements between the students and Laurentian University and the federations. And what's shocking is that Haché would come in and just cancel these agreements unilaterally. And in the middle of the creditor protection process, with no academic consultation or consideration from what that might mean for the programs that are housed in those universities, and for the students that are left hanging. So his focus on the Indigenous Studies program is a perfect example for a total lack of consideration, both of the university's commitment to TRC and also of academic integrity overall. And I wonder if.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if you could clear up that confusion with exactly what's happening with the Indigenous Studies programs.
Yeah, and frankly, we don't know. And so I've been asking around and talking to folks who have more knowledge and experience with this than I do. And I have a colleague at Nipissing University who's a new faculty member in our Indigenous Studies program. He's a Laurentian graduate, quite recent, and he's very connected with that community and with Laurentian. And I wonder, he's allowed me to share his words, and I wonder if it's okay if I just quote a little bit from a conversation that we had. He said, this is Dr. Tyson Stewart, who works at Nipissing, as I said. And he said, this decision terminates highly respected scholars who together oversaw one of the most important storied Indigenous studies departments in North America. And he says some have called it a blatant example of colonialism. And I think, that really highlights that. And to be clear, no one actually really knows what the future for these faculty members are, because Laurentian doesn't have the power to terminate people at a federated university. However, I do know that at many of the other universities, such as Thornloe, which houses religious studies, people's contracts are just being canceled for teaching courses like across the board. So one of the things that Tyson has said that he's heard is that kind of the writing's on the wall. Things are not looking good. And of course, Haché's comment suggests as well that there will be no Indigenous Studies program. There might be something vaguely called Indigenous Perspectives, but I think, what my colleague, Dr. Stewart, is wondering is, are those Indigenous perspectives going to be taught by Indigenous scholars, people who are rooted in the community? And I think the other thing that he points out from Haché's comment is his sort of dismissal of 140 students. It's only 140 students. It's a small program. They'll be absorbed one way or the other. And he says it wasn't just a program like any other. It was a thriving community of Indigenous scholars, students, and locals. And so I think this really points to the fact that universities are so embedded and responsible to their communities. You can't just restructure that as if it were an auto manufacturer.
We have about 5 minutes, and I want to get in a few more questions. But Nadia, I did see you nodding.
Well, I just want to point out his commitment to these students finding a pathway through Indigenous courses with Indigenous perspective. That is different than a program of the Indigenous Studies program. The Indigenous Studies program here at Laurentian is one of the oldest. It was created by Indigenous scholars of the community for the community. So saying that they can continue to take courses through the Faculty of Arts, it's not the same. On Jillian's point about 140 students, it goes beyond the 140 students. At Laurentian, they have, in order to receive your degree, you need to have at least 6 credits in Indigenous studies or a course with Indigenous perspective. All of those students are affected as well. And so it affects the well-rounded education. And if I can bring it back just for a second to Alex Usher's points about relying on international students, I think it's disingenuous to say that Laurentian has chosen not to. That's not true. Mm-hmm. Have they been successful? Not as successful as other universities. I'm not clear on why. It's not something I'm involved with. But however, focusing on lack of international students takes us away from the issues. And the issues are the chronic underfunding of public education, the administration at Laurentian choosing to go through the CCAA process to restructure university, as opposed to respecting the collective agreement that has provisions in there to restructure programs.
Sebastian, we've been talking about students, and you are representing students. How does this affect their year and their degrees? What's happened?
Yeah, I think what's most complicated is the fact that it really depends what program you were initially in, how far along in that degree you are. Because now we have students who had reached out and essentially told us that they had 3 exams within one day because they had to do that before their professors were going to essentially be fired 3 days after, right? So in terms of the immediate, it's a lot of anxiety, it's a lot of lack of focus and being able to understand what it is that your next years in this degree are going to look like. And the thing that I also want to highlight, and that a lot of students have been talking about, is that this doesn't only affect the programs for students whose these are their majors. This really speaks to the plethora of the variety and the diversity of courses that students are able to take, meaning that those elective courses from those departments, which prior would have been requirements for these students, are no longer going to be available, meaning that the diversity and the quality of the education that these students are receiving is essentially left aside and not considered, leaving students with even more anxiety about the future of their degrees or having to move and relocate to be able to finish those degrees themselves.
There's a lot of anxiety, Nadia, because for students and also for the faculty who have been laid off, there is a pandemic. What are the prospects for you and other professors who have been laid off?
Oh, wow. Well, any one of us that want to continue in academia will have to leave Sudbury because there is no other university. We do not know the fate of the federated universities. I know Thornloe and the U of S, University of Sudbury, are now challenging that decision. But if we want to continue on in academia, of course, we'd have to leave the city. And the same is true with students. This idea that they can continue on at Laurentian, well, they can continue on, but not in their degree of choice. These cuts have minimized their options at Laurentian and to study at home. As well, it minimizes the choices for future students. So it does cut off pathways to education, pathways to careers, to live and work in your language near your community. So the impact is not just faculty. There will be a huge impact on students that go beyond this term.
We have one more minute, Gillian, and I'll give it to you because one report estimates that up to $100 million will be lost to Sudbury, the community itself. What does that mean for Sudbury and the Northern Ontario University community when students and faculty have to leave?
Yeah, it's devastating for northern communities. We in North Bay and in Sudbury, this university is the 3rd largest employer in town. So when it lays off hundreds of people, it has a catastrophic effect for the economy, mortgages, taxes, you name it, but also a profound effect on the social impact on the community as well. I mean, this is a huge brain drain from the north, as Nadia says. People are going to have to leave, students are going to leave, and that means a loss of committed community members who are involved in every part of Sudbury's life, and it will just leave the community poorer in every way.
We really appreciate all of you making. Oh, Nadia, I'll give you 10 seconds.
Yes, just to add to that, the programs that were cut have affected and will affect the community. So Laurentian has been key in the regreening of Sudbury. The School of Environmental Studies is gone. The midwifery program, the only bilingual midwifery program in Canada, the only midwifery program in the north that serviced the community in meaningful ways, that's gone. So it will have a huge impact on the community and the services that we're able to provide in the community.
We all appreciate your time so much, and we will be thinking of you and the community there. Thank you so much for all your insights. Take good care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.